Your company is a bit of an outlier in the on-demand world because you have employees rather than contractors. Why did you opt to go for the employee route?
Yeah, it's funny, we get that question a lot, as you can imagine. And for us, it was a very simple decision. We wanted to provide the best service to our customers, and we found that in order to do that, we needed to have the best employees, and to have the best employees, we needed to be the best employer. And the only way we could do that was by providing kind of things that you can only do as an employer, things like training, benefits, career progression. So it just didn't make sense for us really to be able to deliver at the service level that we wanted to use contractors.
So was there ever a thought to use contractors, or was it clear from the beginning that the employee route was the best way to go?
So when we first started out, we weren't using contractors, but we were subcontracting to other companies, and we did that for a few months and realized we had no control and the service level wasn't great. And that was when we kind of went through this evolution and thought and kind of had this aha moment of like, we're going about it the wrong way. Like, yes, we're a technology company, but we also need to embrace the fact that we're also a service company. And so, we have sort of like two masters, like the people and the technology, and we need to be very good at both of them. We kind of got into it first really looking at like product design and technology, and then realized pretty quickly that we couldn't be successful without really embracing our role as an employer.
So we've seen considerable growth within the on-demand economy for companies that are going the contractor route. Do you feel like the pendulum's going to switch the other way at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of has already. So, following the ruling in California, we saw, I think, Instacart, Ship, a few others transition over or start to transition over. I think that will continue to be the case. It's unclear like what the future is going to be from a regulatory standpoint. So we could also see, regulation shift that would favor using contractors. It's a little bit tough to say. My kind of perspective on what happened was Uber was wildly successful, and everyone just kind of like took the bait and followed the lead. And so, we had this when we were fundraising too, that investors were pushing us to use contractors because investors are pattern recognizers. And so they saw like kind of on-demand labor marketplace, and it was sort of prescribed as a one-size-fits-all solution, but it didn't really fit, our needs. And I think we're seeing a lot of companies now struggle or go out of business, and like it's not really a one-size-fits-all. Uber has an amazing business model and an amazing business, but that model doesn't really, like the Uber for X paradigm is broken if you kind of blindly apply it to any industry.
Right. What do you think would happen if employees, whether they're employees or they're contractors, had access to the same tools and the same data that the companies have access to?
What type of data?
Just like any of the automation that happens, any of the information that could help them to schedule themselves better, to have more empowerment for what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, so that's sort of like the way that we've tried to position ourselves is taking the best of both worlds. So like the benefits of being an employee, but then also the benefits of on-demand work. And so we actually are sort of doing that where, they're setting their availability through our operator app, and then we're using our systems to schedule them empathetic to when they want to work and also like where they live and which transit lines they're taking to the client accounts. So we're seeing like a lot of benefit by kind of opening that up and making it part of being empathetic as an employer. I don't know if that's exactly what you were
No,
looking
exactly, yeah. What do you think a mature on-demand economy looks like?
It's a good question. I think about that a lot because, there's definitely a lot of, all of the discussion at this conference and similar conferences. And I think there's, one view of the world that it's everything. And I think like when we're in San Francisco and we launched here a few months ago, it is definitely different the way people approach work. Like there's more of a leaning towards gig work, like people prefer it. Whereas in New York, we find our employees prefer the stability. So it's kind of tough to say. I don't know like which is the future. I think there are definitely people that want to believe and that do believe that kind of the gig work is like the future of the on-demand economy. And I think there's other people that think it's a fad. And I don't really have a strong opinion myself. I think it's interesting to see like use cases that really work, and like Uber is a use case that seems to really work for pretty much everybody involved. It's not clear to me that there's a lot of other like, that's going to be a 100-year company. Uber seems to be like the only one, so I think we're pretty far from maturity, and I'm not sure what it's going to look like.
Well, that was my next question. When do you think that happens? And is it going to be a circumstance where we don't really even have a sense of the maturity because everything will sort of find its own natural level, perhaps even geographically?
Yeah, I think like the other side of the coin is like, what does maturity in like the on-demand economy look like? Because part of the way, so a lot of the work that we do is scheduled, but we have the ability to do things on demand. And I think probably, actually, like, this would be probably what I would say of what it looks like is on demand becomes table stakes, right? Like Domino's has been doing on demand pizzas for a long time.
Yes,
They
they
just,
have.
you
That's a
know,
good
it's like,
point.
but this is all it
Yes.
is like creating logistical software,
Yep.
using mobile devices to do things better and faster. And I actually had this thought this morning getting out of bed that like, the on-demand economy is just turning the world into a luxury hotel. When you're in a hotel, like if you want like toothpaste, the concierge can run and get it or
Right.
whatever. You know, if you're in
Right.
a luxury hotel, they bring food to your room. Like they come and service your room while you're not in it. We're literally, all of the things that you think of in a luxury hotel are just being blown apart and brought to like, you know, people's apartments. But yeah, I think it's like we will see traditional players be able to deliver at this service level because the building blocks are being put in place. So there's a lot of people now that are taking the software that was built to originally run companies like Uber or TaskRabbit or Handy, and it's being white labeled for use in other companies. So everybody's getting to play now. It's not just like you no longer have an edge for being able to develop the mobile app. So I think like probably the evolution looks like everyone's doing it and we're not talking about it because it's just part of how business operates.
Right. Last question for you. What people or projects are you following these days?
That's a good question. You know, I've been obviously very interested in all of the future of work discussions, and so unfortunately my vision hasn't been much wider than that. So I was at the White House a few weeks ago for a summit on worker voice, and had an opportunity to meet the folks working on the Good Work Code who are presenting today, and I think there's a lot of interesting things happening in that space. I've been in touch with Natalie from Peers, who's working on portable benefits. You know, there's a lot of kind of interesting agitation in the space, and I'm not really sure what the future looks like. I know there's been a lot of talk about universal basic income, which I'm intellectually very interested in, but it seems like so far from reality. So I will say it's tough running a very fast growing company to have interests outside of making sure that the train stays on the tracks.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.